Do you ever discount the work of God or the authenticity of your younger self? In light of recent events, I've been thinking quite a bit about how I see the world, how I see myself, how I see others, and how I see the way that others see the world. I tried to find a way to describe what I meant in just for the title of this coffee talk. I ended up calling it "The Journey is Real." It's a Wednesday afternoon in April, toward the end of April, and outside it's snowing on top of the fresh mowing grass and the dandelions that are growing and the other flowers that were sprouting and blooming. It's snowing right now here along the Front Range in Denver. And I'm coming up in just a couple of days will be my 10th wedding anniversary to Stacy. And world events continue to swirl. And I am so pleased with the current situation on my social media pages. And I'll explain. In the past, there have been times where everything that was on my page echoed exactly with the way I believed or the way I felt. And currently, and this has been the case for a number of years now, it seems that every time there is a situation within the church at large or within politics at large, then I will have some of my friends posting one thing and some of my other friends, whom I also love dearly, posting polar opposite. And so there are extremes that show up. These are the extremes to my acquaintances and our collective worldview. And I am so grateful. I am so grateful not to be in an echo chamber where I only hear one thing over and over, the same things. I am also sometimes astonished at how predictable we are as humans. That depending on our worldview, depending on where we're coming from, what our response will be. And that, I don't want to call it knee-jerk reaction, but that reaction that we have to events around us. That's what I'm trying to get after. That's what when I say the journey is real, that's what I'm wanting to discuss for a moment here. And so I know it's 4:00 on a Wednesday, but I made coffee because I usually don't drink any coffee after 5:00 in the afternoon, just so that by the time I go to bed at 10:00, I'll have a good relaxed and am able to go to bed. And sometimes I don't even make it to bed by 10 anyway. It's more closer to 11. But so I'm drinking coffee 4:00 on a Wednesday, and I'm thinking about the reality and the authenticity of the journey and what God has done in my life. And so I wanted to share with you just a few pieces of my younger life, and then I wanted to see if I can explain what is on my heart, because I really feel this is important. The way we treat our younger selves is important. And so, for instance, let me find if I can find here. Yes, here we go. This is, I don't have baby pictures, but I have this. This was in my little baby book, and it's my mama traced around my hands when I was just a little guy. Right at birth, it says Joseph's right hand print at birth, Joseph's left hand print at birth. So I have this. That's pretty awesome, but I don't have anything before then. I don't have any real baby pictures, and so then when it comes to actually find baby pictures, if I want to actually, or not baby pictures, just pictures of me, like I think I was 14 when we first got a camera and we first took some photos. I don't have that picture here. I have about 6 months later, I have some photos here. Let's see here. Here we are at this is a school, and I'm not going to identify who else is in this picture just because I don't want to be mean to people who can't defend themselves while I'm talking. But see the guy with those, I look like I'm standing there all legs wide apart and everything. We were actually just stepping apart. We in this particular program, we were singing, and so everyone just stepped apart to sing. But that's me right here. This guy right here in the back. My mom was teaching a number of students in our home, and that was me. So that is me at, I think I'm 14. No, I might be 13 still there. I'm not sure. Anyway, it's young me. And so that's some of the earliest pictures I have of me. And I still have the Amish haircut. I'm still wearing Amish clothes. We have a few people that are with us in that school who are not Amish. Some of them came from Amish backgrounds, but they're not Amish. Here is a picture of my sister Ruth and I. And actually my mom is holding Rosemary. And that's my brother Jonathan there in the front. And this was while we were still Amish on a Sunday afternoon. And yeah, if you look, you can see the bowl cut of the Amish that I'm still wearing here. I'm crossing my arms here, very standard position for a lot of Amish people, the posture and the position. Here is a picture of me when my sister Dorcas was born. So this would have been, I'm 15 now. I now have a different haircut. Let's see what else I have here. This is actually my 15th birthday. I believe this is my 15th birthday. And there was pizza. There was angel food cake. Someone sent me a greeting card. It was being passed around. There's some ice cream over here. Looks like we got a gallon of Neapolitan ice cream. And so that's me. I am a young man, and I am just finding the very beginnings of my faith at that time. I'm hearing a lot of people talking all around me. I'm actually hearing a lot of different things. At that point, there were people on the West Kootenai who were talking about how we needed to keep the Levitical law. There were people in the West Kootenai who were affirming that we needed to be Amish and to stay Amish and to keep the old Amish ways. There were several other denominations on the West Kootenai at the time that we would hear from at times. And by the time I was turning 15, I had bumped into some King James only people who were very strong on that. I had bumped into people who were some manner of Mennonite and would come, and we had a lot of different. It was a far west crossroads of a lot of different belief systems that were all somewhere within the Christian church. And I remember going to a spiritual warfare series with Mark Bubeck. I remember having people coming from Africa and from Russia and some other places and speaking at church, not the Amish church, just the Kootenai Christian Fellowship. And I was hearing things from around the world. I was hearing things from all different places within Christianity. And I was finding my own legs. I was discovering who I was. I remember a year later, when I was 16, I remember my family was hosting, and it was some friends. So we had several families in our church fellowship who were from Russia, and so through their connection, we had gotten some speakers there from Russia who were speaking at church, and we hosted them. And so on Sunday morning, I drove them into town. And as we were driving into town, I was, they were asking questions of me. And so what they were trying to understand was, how does the Christian American youth, how do we respond to various things? Like, how do we go about getting a wife? How do we go about... And by this time, I had some very specific ideas and notions about how I would go about to get a wife. And I remember explaining the whole... and for me, it was a version of courtship, and I don't know how you understand courtship or what you thought courtship meant, but I discovered after a while that different people had different ideas. But I had the whole concept where I was going to keep myself pure for marriage. Well and good, that's in the scriptures. I was going to at that time I was going to wait until I was a man, which was good. I was only 16, and so I was going to wait. Later on, this turned into a waiting. I wasn't sure how long I was going to wait, and I'd be like, I need to commit myself to the Lord, and I don't know. And it turned into a little bit of a problem, because later on it meant I didn't prepare myself for marriage the way I ought to have. And so I ended up discussing with them all the way in, and I remember the most awkward thing for me was that right as we arrived at the church and we're walking up the front steps and going into the church, they kept animatedly asking me all these questions. And on the front steps, on the front entrance there to the church, and this was before Kootenai Christian Fellowship had the side doors. When we just had the doors downstairs, we'd come in and go up. And right there, the girls, like probably 8 or 9 of them from church, the fellowship there, were lining the outside, and we're just all hanging out there. And so I was mortified because I had to walk up those stairs, up those steps, and be polite but keep conversation going with the Russians, and explain to them how when I chose a girl and thought that she was the right one for me, that I was going to go talk with her dad, and then I was trying to explain how I was going to go about getting a wife. And so I remember the main thing about that at the time was that as much as I wasn't ready to be married at 16, and as much as I didn't know what I was doing, the part that really had felt really good about sharing was the fact that I was seeking the Lord's face, and I was trying to keep myself pure. But then when I got into this whole other thing about courtship, I felt as if I was sharing someone else's belief system that I didn't fully understand, and now it was kind of like a test, and here I am going up the stairs, and I'm trying to explain, and it's not as authentic as, say, the decision to keep pure until I was married was. And that moment describes so many moments of my years back then, where I kind of understand some truth, I really want to do the right thing, and I'm explaining it, but someone asks questions, and I come to the edge of my understanding. And so if you think of it as if you think of my faith and my experience at the time as being this little homestead in the woods, well, I've cleared out so far, and then it turns into thick woods, and the thickets are out beyond. And so what would happen is I would get to the point where I just really didn't have the right words or experience, and I was right on the edge of my thicket, and it got real foggy past there. And so if anyone would ask me questions, I would run out of clear space. I would be unable to explain it, and I'd be out in the woods, and I'd be lost in the trees. And so this would happen to me at different things. On that particular day it happened. I remember other times it happened. And so as I was growing, I was really trying to understand more specifically who I was, how I could respond. Here's a picture of myself when I was a young man. I was 22 years old. I was on a trip out to Oregon. I was traveling in a little 1985 Nissan Sentra, and I was headed out to go do some chalk art. And it was an exciting time for me. And if you ask me, well, what was that young man thinking? Well, I'll tell you what I was thinking. I really desperately wanted to serve God. I really desperately, and the only way I knew at the time that I could really effectively do something was if I did the gospel chalk art. And so I would do a lot of the gospel chalk art work. And my whole desire with that was I was trying to do, I really wanted to serve the Lord, and I was very, very sincere, and I was very authentic. And so from the time that I was 15, getting a new haircut, we were leaving the Amish, I was following Jesus, to the time I was 22, going out to Oregon on a chalk art trip, all through the 20s that I was single, all through that time. All of that, if you ask me then, I would tell you I loved God very much, and I really wanted to serve Him. I really wanted to know Him. So here, I'm now going to do something else. Back in 2008, when Facebook came out, I managed to snag an account when, I forget what school I had to be invited by, but somebody invited me so I could be on Facebook. And so here on Facebook are my profile pictures, and here was the very first profile picture I put up. You can see that I'm quite tanned here. I'm combing my hair kind of back. This was a hairstyle I had for quite a while. Actually, this is September 2007. I didn't realize I was doing it, that I was on there this soon. But so here I am, And this is me. September 2007, September the 3rd. This young man right here. This is, at this point in my life, I was doing quite a few chalk drawings. I had started buying a house. I was doing the absolute best I could I wanted to be in full-time ministry. And I was beginning to suspect that God had something up his sleeve for me. I was beginning to realize that my idea of what full-time ministry was and what God wanted to do through me was maybe not quite the same. See, I kept thinking it would be so much better if I wouldn't have to ever do menial labor, if I didn't ever have to get a normal job, if I could just serve God. And as a result of that desire, it caused me to have this expectation for the church. I kept thinking, if God has called me to go and preach with gospel chalk art, and if God has not called you, but God has called you instead to do a job or whatever else, if you don't have a calling like I do, then you should just go get a job and go do some work, and you should send money to me so that I could go do God's work because God called me. And so I had this really strange sense of entitlement. It was a Christian entitlement, and you'll still find this in many churches today, in many ministries. You'll find people, even sometimes missionaries and evangelists and others, who will have a strange entitlement thing where they think that because they have a calling from God, and because they have a vision and they have good intentions to do something for the kingdom, that the church ought to just give them a living. And I was in the middle. This young man right here in 2007, I was actually 27 years old. I was in the middle of discovering that if God gives us a calling, he also will provide for us in some way, and that way might mean that he's asking us to work for our calling. And if it truly is a calling, then we should be willing to actually work our hands off almost to fulfill what God is asking us to do. And is it good and biblical for us to give money to someone who has a different calling than we do? Yes, that is good and biblical. All right, now I'm going to skip through some of these pictures here. Here were a whole series that I did, and this guy right here, I discovered that time that I could take a picture up against a white cloth or something and I could cut it out, and I loved the effect. So every day leading up to Christmas, I did a whole bunch of different pictures and just was having fun with them. So that was me. It's by now it's January 2008, but I discovered that I could take these pictures and cut them out. So that was me discovering technology, discovering some art and stuff. Here is me. This is actually I didn't think this was 2008. I think this is from some earlier time, but maybe, yeah, it's got to be. This has got to be from back in 2004, I think. And so here I was at the Gospel Chalk Art reunion up in Flint, Michigan. And this picture, I never drew this picture in an actual meeting as a message. We were learning pictures from other artists. So we all came together. Different artists would show us a picture they were doing, and Matt Bowman had gone through and found some of the coolest different pictures that would stretch us, give us different ideas of how we could share the gospel. And so he selected these guys to come, not just guys, but it was these people, these artists, to come and share with us the different things. And so they did. And so I learned how to draw different pictures, and the whole point was to be stretched. So that picture of 9/11 was one of them that I was learning how to draw something different that I didn't usually draw. Here I am in El Paso, there in March, somewhere around March 2008, and I'm on my way down into Mexico. We're going down to Juarez. I'm going to be the chalk artist in Mexico, and so I'm there, and this is a new experience for me. We went up on a high point there in El Paso and looked down across this into Juarez, and we were praying for the city before we went in. This was a Bearing Precious Seed mission. So here I am later. I think this is in somewhere in New Mexico with my brother when we went out on the ranch there. This is looks like it's Abundant Grace Church in Yoakum, Texas, and I had someone take a photo of me, and this was my picture for quite a while. These are my profile pictures off Facebook. And then I did some crazy ones, like I had some of these things, and I was doing the story of Sergeant York, and then that's me goofing around. This is I'm at a this thing that I'm wearing around my neck tells me I'm at some kind of summer camp that year, and I'm telling a story about the two ways: the upper road that leads to light and the lower path that leads into darkness. It's a different message. It had to do with honor. Here I am shooting. I think that's my. Oh, this is at Camp Winchester, and I'm probably shooting someone's 45 or something. Then this is me out with my brother. He was on a ranch, and I killed a jackrabbit out there. This is my little friend Michael. This was he had been at summer camp, and then I'd gone and visited his family a few times. Here I am. George Washington came to visit. That's Mark Collins. Went out to Big Bend, and with a bunch of guys here. Went to Six Flags for the very first time when I was, I think, 29 years old, 28, 29. Yeah, quite a thing. This is me in Ohio, and that's Pastor Bill Perry was my teammate at the family camp that year, and I'm not sure if I threw that or he threw it, but that was our winning shot that made it. That was the winning shot. Here I'm on the lake somewhere down in Texas, and then here I'm with my friend Lisa. Here's somehow that picture. I'm remembering September 11, 2009. Here I'm back out with my brother and New Mexico, and then here I'm at the Alamo. Here my little niece Alexis Rose is born. Here's my friend Pavel he's from Poland. Here I am with Little Bear Wheeler at the Alamo. I did a chalk drawing in front of the Alamo while Little Bear told a story, an account of the Alamo, and shared the gospel. Some window painting I did. Here, Brother Hector is preaching down in Mexico. I'm drawing a picture. Here at Alamo again. Here I am at some place down near Houston, Pasadena, somewhere, drawing a picture, talking at a church thing. My friend Austin Mullet. Then now we're coming closer and closer. This is 2010. I've started growing a little facial hair. Here I am, the shepherd. This is about the time I met Stacy. Here's the Sergeant York story. Some painting I did, and here I meet my wife, and then we get engaged, and there's our engagement photo shoot, indescribable, our marriage, and here's the current picture that I have from that's still my current thing. Something happened after I got married. I kind of settled down and became just more consistent. In the last 10 years, I have been constantly, I was either preparing to be a pastor or I was a pastor, and I was working on one film project after the other, and we were still supporting missions, and but a lot of my life has been very consistent and constant for the last 10 years, while things have changed a lot. And so I just shared all of those pictures with you and took you back through my profile, because when I look at those times, each of those seasons, I know a lot more about life now than I did then. And the temptation is that from my more enlightened place right now, I can look back then and I could say, oh, that was not the real me. That was before I knew this, or that was before I knew that, and just excuse him. He was just a dummy back then, and I could just completely discount the work that God was doing in myself back then, and that's not healthy. But I see it all the time where people are embarrassed about their younger self. Now, there were times where I sinned as a younger person, and I had to repent of those, and I still have to say to this day that was wrong. I remember some of the things were the way I treated some of my younger siblings through pride and arrogance on myself, and I would have to go back and apologize. And as the years go on, I look back and I understand more and more how wrong I was. But at the same time, I also know that I really loved God. And from the time right before my 14th birthday, I first asked Christ into my life. 15, surrendered to Him. All the way through, I was so consistently seeking Him. I don't think I ever explained my mug here, but this mug is actually a tin cup that my sister Ruth got from me. I think she went to when she was in London somewhere, I believe, if I have the right trip in mind, but she brought it back to me. But so this is me talking about me today. I'm Joseph, talking about Joseph. But my current more enlightened state does not rule out the authenticity of my position or belief in the past. That's what I'm trying to say. And so it's possible for me to fully pursue God then and now, and it's possible for me to be in a completely different position then and now, and that both can be authentic. And so let me see if I can bring this back full circle. For instance, right now, the George Floyd thing is in the news right now with the court case being finished yesterday. And so I have friends who are still pushing that if George Floyd would just have, surrendered quietly to the police and properly, then it would never have happened. And I have other friends saying, wow, finally justice is served. And others are saying, well, now we have real injustice. And so I have people on both sides of this going different directions. And it caused me to stop and think, do you want someone else to look at pictures of your younger self and to assign motive to you? Because, and here's why I ask, I know where I was when I was that younger person. So if I see a picture of you looking to be at the same season of life, looking to be maybe in the same locations, doing the same things, and I look at in myself and say, well, what was I thinking and doing at that age? And then I superimpose my motives onto you. And when you start to try to tell me something about how you feel or what you believe or what your experience is, you will say, oh, you'll be trying to tell me, but I will be like out shouting you with my motives that I'm assigning onto you. And this is the real problem in the church and in America and in politics, is we assign our motives on other people a lot of times. And I don't want people to even look at my current pictures and assign motives from their lives. I would rather be allowed to explain what my motives were. Like, that picture way back here where I have let's see, where is this picture? This is this crazy picture right here. Like, what was my motive for this situation? Well, my motive was simple. I was trying to figure out how to tell some stories from World War I. And so I was trying to find the right stuff to go along with it. And all I could come up with was stuff from World War II. And then I was like, oh, maybe I could make a poster. And so I took a bunch of pictures, and I was using the timer on pictures and stuff. And so I accidentally set the timer to go too long. And so I'm standing there waiting, and it's still not going. And then finally I'm like, and then it goes. And so that's my motive for that picture. And then out of foolishness or bravado, or I don't know, my younger self knows, I went ahead and posted it on Facebook, and I got a few comments from it. But do you see what I'm getting at here? It's really is a heavy topic, but it's really important. Some of us share our thoughts just blah on social media in such a way that it's pretty hard not to miss the motivation that's behind it. At least that's what it seems like. But if we were able to actually sit down across the table with a mug of coffee and actually hear what we're saying, I think there would be times when we would understand, whoa, this is a very nuanced issue. There's a lot of stuff here that I'm not seeing. You see, in marriage, this is something I've learned in 10 years of marriage, so here's my bit of marriage wisdom. In marriage, one spouse can hurt the other spouse. And it can be pretty bad trauma from one wound, right? So there can be words spoken carelessly, actions done, actions left undone. Something happens. As a result of that first wound, the spouses can continue going on for quite a while, and finally, this spouse says, I don't know what's wrong, but it just seems like something's not working right. And the other spouse says, don't you remember that time 10 years ago when you hurt me? And this spouse says, what? I hurt you 10 years ago? Yes, you hurt me 10 years ago, and this is exactly what you said, this is what you did, this is what you meant. And the spouse says, whoa, I never meant that. But you did it, and it hurt. And so right now, The spouse that did the thing 10 years ago can say, I'm really sorry, and can apologize, can ask forgiveness, and can repent from that. But there's something that happened between 10 years ago and now. There's been a whole lifelong 10 years of living together. And so there are actual things that this person did because they were hurt that were now hurting this spouse. So it's no longer just a simple issue. If right here at the beginning, 10 years ago, they would have said the words, the spouse would have said, that really hurts because of this, this, and this. And this one would have listened. They would have said, oh, I'm really sorry. That was really unkind of me. I should not have done that. I am so sorry. Would you forgive me? And would have taken the time immediately to repent and to ask forgiveness. Then it could have been taken care of just like that. But because it went on, and this side is not hearing this, and they're not hearing each other, after a while, both sides are hurt and wounded, and it can take a lot of healing to dig out of that. Not saying it can't happen, because it happens all the time, but it needs to happen. There's now so many pieces to this. There is a starting point. And so what happens a lot of times is we come along in someone else's story, and we don't see the starting point. We only see something that's happening way down the road here. And we immediately speak into it. Here's truth. And someone else who knows a different bit of the life looks at this and says, no, that is not the full truth. Look over here. And they go back a couple notches. Neither one is actually seeing the full story, but they're seeing different starting points for this story. And as a result, we're not even close to finding the answer. And so right now, like all my friends posting about justice or injustice or all of the just things on social media, it kind of hurts me because we're not listening to each other. We're not actually hearing what's happening. And I'm telling you, our law enforcement in America and just our American judicial system, we need a lot of help. And so when I think of judging my younger self and putting my motivations currently on my younger, I look at this personally. I look at this with my family and where we came from for the last 500 years. I think of my church, my faith, Christianity around the world. I think of my country, since 1776. Later this week, we're going to be doing a Living History Days. But what I'm seeing, and I'm running clear out of time, and I don't know if I've even addressed yet what I'm really after is, but don't discount God's work in your younger self, and don't discount God's work in someone else. You can come a complete 180 from where you started, and you can believe something completely different, but don't just dismiss what you believed when you were younger. Like some of those pictures back there, I believed we could only worship God by singing certain kinds of hymns. Some of the pictures back there, I thought there might be only one proper explanation of the end times, when in fact the church has always had three different explanations of possibilities of how the end times might play out. Some of those times I was stuck on one Bible translation, and later I understood what really happened and what the miracle of Bible translation really is, and I'm so grateful for it. And so there's times when I was very harsh and unforgiving of other people because they didn't do things just the way I thought they should, and I assigned motives to them, and I looked at what they were doing and I thought I understood, and I didn't understand. I look back at myself and I have to be kind to myself and realize I was pursuing God. God was merciful to me then. He's merciful to me now. God was merciful to you then. He's merciful to us now. He was merciful to the young United States. He's merciful to the older United States if we humble ourselves and pray. But I don't know if any of us know the full story. And so I'm asking for dialogue. I'm asking us to take the time to be kind, to listen, and to listen to yourself, listen to others, be kind, and don't make snap judgments. So, what a coffee talk. I'm a little concerned that the way what I'm thinking, my deep thoughts, are maybe not resonating as deeply as they should or could if we were sitting in person. So, be kind to yourself. And that, if you want, there's a song out there by Andrew Peterson called Be Kind to Yourself. Listen to that song. And then let's remember that the journey is real. and that other people are at different places in the journey. And let's attempt to show mercy and kindness wherever we are in the journey, and to not harden our hearts against other people who are also sincere and authentically seeking to walk in truth. Because I'm telling you what, both sides of my social media, I trust that they have been moved and touched by God, been healed by God, and that God himself is interacting with them, and God hasn't given up on us. And the fact that we can be so completely different is pretty shocking. And the fact that we all need to grow and continue to change is very evident and very obvious. We're not arrived yet, but we are arriving. So let's do it together with kindness. And yeah, blessings. I'll talk to you all next week.